In the heart of Alaska, where survival isn't just a skill, but a way of life, one man built a legacy that captivated millions. Marty Meierotto wasn't born into fame. He carved it out of the wilderness, one freezing night and one dangerous flight at a time. To fans of mountain men, he was the ultimate symbol of grit and independence. But behind the stunning landscapes and trapping triumphs was a story of loss, risk, and quiet tragedy. From fire to fame, and from freedom to the painful weight of time, Marty's life carried secrets that no camera could fully capture. Long before his name became known to television audiences, Marty was just a young man in northern Wisconsin with an unusual dream. Unlike his peers who chased careers and stability, Marty's imagination belonged to Alaska. Its endless wilderness called to him like nothing else, promising a raw and untamed existence where survival meant freedom. He worked long days as a logger and in construction, saving every dollar not for a house or a new car, but for his one-way ticket north. Friends thought it was a phase, but Marty knew better. This wasn't fantasy, it was destiny. In his mid-20s, he finally packed his life into a truck and drove thousands of miles to Alaska. What he found was not a postcard paradise, but a brutal landscape where temperatures plunged to -60 and mistakes could mean death. Yet it was exactly what he had always craved, a chance to test himself against nature itself. Marty had no illusions. It wouldn't be easy. But he wasn't looking for easy. He was looking for purpose. And that single-minded drive would shape every moment of his life. Still, he couldn't have imagined how much the dream he chased would eventually take from him. Alaska didn't welcome Marty with comfort. It challenged him to endure. Armed with grit and determination, he began building a cabin deep in the interior, far from any road or safety net. Every log he split, every nail he hammered, was a step toward independence. The cabin was more than shelter. It was proof he could belong in a land designed to break men. But Marty wasn't alone in his mission for survival. He met Dominique, a woman as resilient as the wilderness itself, and together they carved out a life far beyond the modern world's reach. Soon their daughter Noah was born, and the child grew up with snowstorms, wolves, and trap lines as part of daily life. The family lived season to season, their survival depending on the unpredictable fur trade. A good catch meant security, a bad season meant uncertainty. Yet they thrived, forming a bond that only shared hardship can create. Marty's world looked steady from the outside, but underneath was a fragile reality. Everything depended on his ability to keep moving, keep building, and keep flying. And that's where his most dangerous tool came into play, a plane that offered both salvation and terrifying risk. For Marty, the Piper PA-18 Super Cub wasn't just a plane, it was life itself. In Alaska's interior, snowshoes and sleds weren't enough to cover hundreds of miles of trap lines. The Super Cub gave him reach, speed, and the ability to return home after weeks alone in the wilderness. Yet every takeoff was a gamble. The Alaskan skies are brutal, where sudden winds, hidden downdrafts, or a patch of rough ice can turn a simple flight into a death sentence. Marty became an expert bush pilot, learning to land on frozen rivers barely wide enough for his skis and to read storm clouds like road signs. To the audience of mountain men, those aerial shots looked thrilling. But to Dominique and Noah, every flight was agony, a silent prayer that the plane would return. Freedom had its price, and Marty paid it with risk every time he pulled back the throttle. The plane expanded his world, but also tethered him to constant danger. Still, the true heartbreak wouldn't come from the skies. It came from the one place he believed was safe, his own cabin. And when disaster struck, it nearly erased everything he had spent decades building. After years of carving a home out of the frozen north, Marty returned one evening to find his greatest nightmare realized. His cabin, the shelter he built with his bare hands, the home where his daughter had grown up, the fortress against endless winters, was engulfed in flames. A spark from the stovepipe had turned into an unstoppable inferno. By the time Marty arrived, it was too late. He could only watch as 2 decades of labor, tools, and irreplaceable memories were reduced to ash. For any man, it would be devastating. But for Marty, whose survival depended on every supply and every piece of gear, it was catastrophic. The emotional toll cut deeper than the physical loss. This wasn't just a house, it was his dream in physical form, the evidence that he could beat Alaska at its own game. And now it was gone. Cameras captured his devastation, but they couldn't capture the hollow silence of watching his life's work vanish in smoke. Still, Marty didn't quit. He rebuilt, because that's what survival demands. But the fire left scars deeper than any wound. He could move forward, but he would never again feel untouchable in the wilderness. In the years that followed, Marty's story reached millions through mountain men. Viewers admired his toughness, his resourcefulness, in the almost mythical way he wrestled survival from the wild. Fame brought him financial stability that trapping alone never could, but it also brought something he never wanted: scrutiny. His solitude, once sacred, was now invaded by camera crews and directors. The trapline that had been his private sanctuary turned into a stage. For fans, it was entertainment. For Marty, it was strange to see his hardest, most intimate struggles broadcast as television drama. He adapted, explaining his methods for the audience and performing tasks with a microphone clipped to his chest. But the more the world learned about Marty, the more he felt his privacy slip away. The Alaskan silence that once defined him was now filled with buzzing cameras and production schedules. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was expected to perform survival. And while fame elevated his name, it also added invisible weight. Yet even that pressure paled compared to the one battle no man can win. It wasn't fire or cameras or weather. It was time itself, and its effects were beginning to show. Fans of mountain men began to notice something subtle. Marty wasn't spending as much time on the trapline. His legendary weeks-long expeditions were shorter. His flights seemed less frequent. Online forums buzzed with speculation. Was it health problems, a hidden family tragedy, or a falling out with producers? The truth was quieter but more universal. Decades of surviving in the harshest environment imaginable had taken their toll. His body, once able to endure endless cold and back-breaking labor, was beginning to falter. Imagine 30 winters of hauling heavy carcasses through waist-deep snow, chopping firewood until your shoulders ached, and landing a plane on frozen rivers with bone-rattling force. That kind of life leaves scars no camera can see. Marty wasn't giving up. He was adapting. He began spending more time at home with Dominique, focusing on shorter trips instead of punishing marathons. To outsiders, it looked like slowing down. In truth, it was wisdom. Even legends reach a point where endurance meets reality. And while Marty never fully stepped away, fans sensed that the man who once seemed unstoppable was quietly facing the greatest battle of all, the creeping weight of age and time. Unlike the drama of a fire or a plane crash, this tragedy unfolded slowly. Marty's toughest battle wasn't against predators or storms, it was against time. His body carried the cost of every frozen night and every dangerous flight. Worse, his daughter Noah, once a child playing in the snow by his side, had grown up and moved away to build her own life. The silence left behind in the cabin was louder than any blizzard. Fans saw the survivalist and the TV star, but few saw the father quietly missing the laughter of his little girl. On top of that came the strange split identity: Marty the humble trapper versus Marty the celebrity survivalist. Balancing those worlds was its own burden. His story became less about conquering Alaska and more about adapting to change, physical, emotional, and personal. The cabin fire was devastating, but the true heartbreaks was realizing that even the strongest man cannot escape the march of time. For viewers, Marty symbolized resilience. But for Marty himself, the question was different. How do you accept the one opponent you cannot outlast? That quiet, universal truth is what makes his story both tragic and profoundly human. Marty Meierotto's life isn't defined by just one tragedy. It's defined by resilience in the face of many. He came to Alaska chasing freedom and found it, but also discovered the steep price it demanded. He built a family and a home in the wild, only to watch fire reduce it to ashes. He mastered the skies, knowing every flight could be his last. He welcomed fame, even as it stripped away the very privacy he had sought in the wilderness. And finally, he faced the inevitable reality of time, a force stronger than storms, fires, or predators. His story reminds us that survival isn't just about battling nature. It's about enduring loss, change, and the unrelenting passage of years. Marty rebuilt from the ashes, adapted to his body's limits, and found ways to continue despite the toll. That's a legacy greater than any TV show could capture. But it leaves us with a haunting question. Is true freedom worth the sacrifices it demands? Some say yes, others no. What do you think? Was the price Marty paid too high? Or was it the only life worth living? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.